The first time I saw my wife. She had a man face down on the hood of a black sedan. I had spent most of the morning at the border. 2 hours in an inspection lane. Another half-hour explaining why I was carrying a folder full of marriage records, tax forms, and a petition for dissolution. By the time I reached the parking lot behind the Greyhaven Civic Annex, I wanted exactly 3 things: a signature, a stamped copy, and a quiet drive home. Instead, I heard tires scrape across concrete and watched 3 unmarked vehicles box in a dark sedan near the loading entrance. Doors opened at once. People moved fast. A woman in a charcoal tactical uniform stepped out of the lead vehicle with one hand already raised. Driver, hands where I can see them. Her voice carried without being loud. The man behind the wheel tried to reverse. He got less than a car length. Another vehicle blocked him. The woman crossed the distance before I had time to decide whether I should back away. She opened the driver's door, hauled the man out with help from another officer, and had him pinned against the hood in a few controlled movements. No wasted motion. No shouting for effect. No movie theatrics. Just procedure. I stood there with my divorce papers under one arm and stared. A uniformed officer near the annex entrance waved me back. Sir, behind the pillar. I have an appointment in the building. Then you still have an appointment 5 minutes from now. Fair enough. I stepped behind the concrete pillar. The woman searched the suspect while another officer read something from a card. A small packet hit the hood. Then another. The woman looked at them. Then at the suspect. Her expression barely changed. When everything was secured, she removed one glove and spoke briefly to a man in a plain jacket. He nodded toward the annex. She turned. That was when she saw me. Noticed me was probably the better word. Her eyes moved from my face to the folder in my hand. Then she walked straight toward me. Up close, she looked younger than I had expected a narcotics unit commander to look. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair pulled into a practical knot. No jewelry except a plain watch. A thin scar near her left eyebrow. She stopped 3 feet away. Noah Grant? I tightened my grip on the folder. Yes. She looked at me for a second longer. Then she said, I'm Elena Cross. I waited. She did not add anything. I looked at the tactical vest, then at the badge clipped to it, then back at her. Elena Cross. Yes. My Elena Cross? One corner of her mouth moved, but not enough to become a smile. That depends on how possessive you intend to make this conversation. I stared at her. She reached into an inner pocket and produced a folded piece of paper. It was a copy of the same appointment notice I had. Greyhaven Family Division. Petitioners. Noah Grant and Elena Cross. My wife. The woman who had just arrested a suspected drug trafficker in a parking lot was the woman I had legally been married to for almost 6 years. And until that moment, I had never seen her face. I laughed once. Not because anything was funny. Because sometimes your brain reaches for the wrong tool when the right one is unavailable. Elena glanced over her shoulder. The suspect was being placed in another vehicle. Then she looked back at me. You came all this way. That was the idea. I thought your attorney would handle it remotely. He tried. And? The clerk wants one joint appearance because there are cross-border property declarations attached to the dissolution. I know. Then why did you think I wouldn't come? Her gaze dropped to the folder. I didn't say that. You sound surprised. I'm surprised you arrived on the same morning one of my operations landed in the Civic parking lot. That makes 2 of us. For the first time. She almost smiled. It disappeared quickly. A man in a plain jacket approached. Captain, we need you for the transfer. Captain? I looked at her again. She gave the man a small nod. I'll be there. Then to me. The hearing is in 40 minutes. I know. I may be late. Of course you may. Her eyes sharpened. It was subtle, but I saw it. You say that like you already know me. I know your signature. That's not the same thing. It's more than I knew this morning. She held my gaze for another second. Then she walked away. I watched her return to the officers. The man in the plain jacket said something. She answered. Everyone moved. I had spent years imagining what it would feel like to finally meet my wife. I had pictured awkwardness, resentment, maybe a brief apology from one of us for letting a legal arrangement drag on so long. I had not pictured body armor. I had not pictured handcuffs. And I definitely had not pictured the clerk at the family division leaning over his desk 20 minutes later and telling me that our divorce could not be finalized that day. There's a hold on one of the attached property declarations, he said. I looked through the glass partition. What kind of hold? Administrative. That word can mean anything. It means I can't process the dissolution until the declaration is cleared. Which declaration? He turned the monitor slightly, keeping most of it out of my view. The joint warehouse lease in East Mercer District. My stomach tightened. We don't have a joint warehouse. The clerk looked at me. According to his face, people said that sort of thing more often than they should. He turned back to the monitor. The filing says otherwise. I opened my folder. Our only jointly recorded asset is the old Birchline house, and that was transferred out 2 years ago. I'm looking at a commercial lease registered to both names. Since when? I can't answer that from this desk. Can you print it? No. Can you tell me who filed it? No. Can you tell me why my name is on property I've never seen? He gave me a tired expression. I can tell you that you need to speak to records, and probably your attorney. Behind me, the courtroom door opened. Elena entered, still wearing the uniform, though the tactical vest was gone. She saw my face and stopped. What happened? I turned toward her. Apparently we own a warehouse. Her expression changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. What warehouse? East Mercer. How long? Long enough to stop the divorce. She came closer. Who filed it? The clerk won't say. That means he can't. Not that he won't. Thank you, Captain. Her eyes narrowed again. I was beginning to understand that I had a talent for irritating my wife. She looked through the partition at the clerk. Is the matter continued? Yes, Captain. He knew her. Of course he knew her. Greyhaven did not seem large enough for anyone in a command position to remain anonymous. When? Earliest slot is in 3 weeks. Assuming the property hold is resolved. I closed my folder. I'm not staying here 3 weeks. No one asked you to. Elena's tone was calm. That somehow annoyed me more. I crossed an international border to end a marriage with a woman I'd never met. And now there's a warehouse in both our names that neither of us claims to know about. I heard you. Do things like this happen often in your life? Warehouses appearing in my marriage records? Yes. No. Good. I was worried I'd married into chaos. You married into a paperwork solution arranged by 2 families. That sentence sounded almost normal, until today. The clerk pretended not to listen. Elena looked at him. Can you give us the public record reference number? That I can do. He wrote it down. Elena took the slip. I held out my hand. She looked at it. Then at me. What? My copy. She tore the paper in half. I took mine. There was something strange about standing beside a woman I had been legally connected to for years and dividing our first piece of shared information between us. Outside the courtroom, Elena checked her watch. I have to go. Naturally. She ignored the comment. Do not visit the warehouse. I looked at her. I didn't say I would. You were thinking it. Can your narcotics training read minds? No. Then don't tell me what I'm thinking. You repair commercial refrigeration units for cross-border carriers. That stopped me. How do you know that? You're my husband. Technically. And our legal records required full disclosure. You read them? Years ago. I laughed again. So you knew what I did. But you didn't know what I looked like. I knew what you looked like. That answer landed differently. I stared at her. She realized it. I had your identification photo. Right. Don't make it strange. I'm not the one who memorized a stranger husband from a government file. I didn't memorize you. You recognized me in a parking lot. That's part of my job. That answer somehow made it worse. For the first time. She did smile. Only briefly. Then it vanished. Stay away from the warehouse. Why? Because East Mercer is inside an active narcotics investigation area. I stopped smiling. What investigation? I can't discuss it. My name is on the lease. I understand. If that property is connected to your case, I have a right to know what I'm exposed to. You have a right to legal advice. That's not the same thing. No. She glanced toward the stairwell. I'm not asking you to trust me. Good. I'm telling you not to create a problem for yourself because you're angry. I'm not angry. You drove 5 hours for a divorce. That's called commitment. Her eyes met mine. Something unreadable moved behind them. Then she stepped back. Call your attorney. I will. And Noah? What? If anyone contacts you about that warehouse, don't answer questions casually. Why? Because if your name is there, someone may already know it. She walked away before I could ask more. I stood in the hall holding half a reference number, and watching my wife disappear through a secure door. I had crossed the border to end one problem. By noon, I had acquired a second one, and unlike the first, I had no idea who had put my name on it. My attorney answered on the second ring. Tell me you got the signatures. Tell me you know why I own a warehouse. There was a pause. Mason Hale had represented me for 4 years, mostly on contracts and customs disputes. He was not easily surprised. That pause told me I had managed it. What warehouse? East Mercer District. Joint lease. My name and Elena's. It stopped the dissolution. Send me the reference. I photographed my half of the slip and sent it. He was quiet for several seconds. Then I heard keys. Public registry is showing a commercial tenancy under Grant Cross Holdings. There is no Grant Cross Holdings. Apparently there is. Who formed it? Give me a minute. I leaned against the hallway wall. Elena had already vanished. People passed me carrying folders. Coffee, phones, ordinary problems. I felt like I had stepped sideways into somebody else's life. Mason came back. Formation document was filed 18 months ago. By who? Registered agent is Calder Fiduciary Services. I've never heard of them. They handle shell entities, estate structures, property trusts, that kind of thing. I didn't create a shell company. I know. Does Elena? I don't know. She looked surprised. That may be meaningful, or it may mean she has a good face. She's a narcotics captain. Then assume she has a very good face. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. Can someone form a company in my name without me? They can file fraudulent paperwork in your name. That's not what I asked? No, they cannot lawfully create obligations for you without authorization. Can we get the documents? I can request the public filings now. Anything private may require a formal demand. Do it. I already am. He went quiet again. Then, Noah, don't go near the property. I stared at the floor. She told you to say that? Who? Elena. I haven't spoken to your wife in my life. Good. I'm getting tired of being predictable. You are predictable. Thank you. You're a technician with a problem in front of you. Your instinct is to open the panel and find the failure. That usually works. This is not a refrigeration unit. So everyone keeps telling me, go somewhere public. Get lunch. Let me work. I hated that advice because it was sensible. I left the annex and found a diner across from the municipal garage. I ordered coffee and something I barely tasted. While I waited, I opened my business account app. Everything looked normal. Grant Thermal Systems was not a large company. It was me, 2 full-time technicians, a part-time bookkeeper, and a network of subcontractors on both sides of the border. We serviced refrigerated trailers, cold storage compressors, insulated delivery vans, and portable medical cooling units. Not glamorous, useful. I had built the company after leaving a larger fleet maintenance firm because I wanted control over my schedule. At least that was what I had told people. The quieter reason was that my father had spent most of his life building a transport business and had died convinced I would inherit it. I had not. My older cousin Adrian Vale had. That decision had split the family so cleanly that even holidays became negotiations. I started my own company rather than spend the next decade proving I deserved a seat at somebody else's table. Adrian and I still did business. That was the thing about family fights. Money often survived feelings. My phone buzzed. Mason, I answered. I have the formation certificate. And? You're listed as managing member. My stomach went cold. Elena? Non-managing member. Signatures? Digital authorizations. Mine is fake. I assumed. Can you send it? It's coming now. My phone chimed. I opened the file. At the bottom was my name, Noah Grant. Below it, an electronic signature mark tied to an email address. Not my email address. Close enough to look like mine at a glance. The domain had 1 letter different. Someone built a fake address. Yes. What about identity verification? There's an attached notarized declaration. With my signature? Yes. Fake? I'm not a handwriting examiner. I know my own signature. Then? It's copied. From where? I zoomed in. The shape was familiar. A long slanted N. A short break before the G. A downward hook at the end. I had signed thousands of work orders in my life. But this one looked especially familiar. Then I knew why. That signature came from a vendor packet. You're sure? I use a different signature on legal documents. This is the quick one I use on field service authorization forms. Who has those? Half the carriers I work with. That's not helpful. No. Look at the registered mailing address. I scrolled. A post office box in Greyhaven. Nothing I recognized. Can we subpoena whoever rented the box? Eventually. If there's litigation or a criminal inquiry. I may already be standing inside a criminal inquiry. That is precisely why I need you to stop doing anything. I looked out the diner window. A city bus hissed to a stop. People got on. Nobody looked like they had fraudulent warehouses attached to their marriages. I want to know what the warehouse is used for. So do I. Can you look at the lease? I've requested it. I could call the landlord. No. Mason. Noah. I hated when he used my name like punctuation. If someone used my identity. I'm not sitting in a diner for 3 weeks. You're not sitting for 3 weeks. You're giving me a few hours. My coffee arrived. I thanked the server. Mason continued. And you need to tell your business bank there may be identity fraud. That could trigger a review. Yes. I have payroll on Friday. Yes. I have fleet accounts. I know. You're very calm about damage to my company. I'm calm because panic doesn't protect your company. He was right again. Annoying man. I'll call the bank. After I send you a script. A script? Basic facts only. No speculation. No accusation. You report suspected identity misuse and ask them to flag unauthorized applications. I know how to speak. You also told the narcotics captain she had a good face for lying. I did not. You thought it. I looked around the diner. Is everyone reading my mind today? You're easy to know. That sentence bothered me more than it should have, because my wife, who had known me for less than an hour, had said almost the same thing without saying it. My second call was to my bookkeeper. Nina Park answered with a mouth full of something. If this is about the Mercer freight invoice. I already yelled at them. It's not. Then I'm listening. Have you ever seen anything for Grant Cross Holdings? Silence. Say that again. I did. More silence. Is this a tax thing? No. A secret company thing? No. A wife thing? Unfortunately. Nina knew about Elena. Everyone close to me knew because there was no normal way to explain why I filed as married while living alone. Years ago, when my father's business had been in financial trouble, 2 families had entered into a series of property and succession agreements. Elena's grandmother owned land used by one of our depots. My father needed long-term access. Her family needed a stable cross-border estate arrangement because Elena had entered public service and wanted nothing to do with the family property operation. The lawyers had proposed a marriage between 2 adults who did not care enough to object. There were tax consequences, residency consequences, inheritance consequences, a lot of signatures, very little romance. I was younger, angrier, still trying to keep my father's company alive. Elena was in academy training. Neither of us attended the same signing. We exchanged letters through attorneys. Then the business stabilized. The property was sold. My father died. And the practical reason for the marriage disappeared. We simply never got around to ending it. A bad explanation. Still the truth. Nina, I need you to search every vendor, every invoice, every incoming wire, every outgoing payment, every insurance certificate. For that name? Yes. Since when? 2 years back. 2 years? Please. Her tone changed. What happened? Someone created a company using my name and Elena's. Do I call the police? Not yet. Do I call Mason? He knows. Do I call your wife? I looked at my untouched sandwich. No. That was a very fast answer. She's working. You finally met her? Yes. And? She arrested someone. Nina made a sound that might have been a laugh and might have been choking. What? She's a narcotics captain. There was a long silence. Then Nina said, I need you to repeat that slowly because I think the sandwich I'm eating just became hallucinogenic. I met my wife. Good start. She leads the narcotics unit. Your wife. Yes. The wife you came here to divorce. Yes. The wife you had never seen. Yes. Did you know she was law enforcement? I knew she worked in public service. That is not the same thing. I noticed. Nina exhaled. Okay. I'm searching the books. Thank you. And Noah? What? If you disappear into a government basement. I'm not doing payroll alone. Comforting. I mean it. I ended the call. My phone showed a message from an unknown number. Do not contact East Mercer Storage Partners directly. No greeting. No signature. I knew who it was. I typed back. Do you always text orders to men you just met? The reply came almost immediately. Only the ones who are legally married to me and standing next to an active investigation. I looked at the screen. Then I wrote. That sounds like a very small sample size. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. Your attorney requested records. Good. Let him work. I stared. How do you know what my attorney requested? This time she took longer. Public registry requests are logged. You check public registry requests during narcotics operations? When the request concerns a property in my case. There it was. Not a suspicion anymore. A fact. The warehouse really was connected to her investigation. I typed, "Then I am connected to your case." Her answer, "Your name is connected to a property connected to my case. That distinction matters. To you? To any competent investigator." I wanted to ask if she thought I was involved. Instead I wrote, "Do you?" She did not answer for almost a minute. Then, "I don't know you well enough to decide what I think." I looked at that sentence until my coffee went cold. It was fair. I disliked it anyway. Before I could answer, Nina called. Her voice had lost all humor. "I found something." "What?" "3 service authorizations under one of your carrier accounts." "Which carrier?" "Vale Transit. My cousin's company." "What authorizations?" "Emergency refrigeration service. East Mercer District." I sat straighter. "We service that warehouse?" "Not directly." "Explain." "The authorizations were issued under your master service agreement. But the technician listed isn't ours." "What company?" "Northway Mobile Cooling." "I know them. We subcontracted overflow repairs to Northway twice the previous winter. Small operation. Competent. Expensive. Who approved the work?" "That's the problem." I already knew before she said it. "You." My hand tightened around the phone. "No. The approval emails came from your address." "Which address?" She read it. "The fake domain. The 1-letter difference." I closed my eyes. "How much?" "Not huge. A few thousand total." "Paid by who?" "Vale Transit." "Why would Vale pay a subcontractor under my service agreement?" "The invoices show reimbursement through a maintenance reserve." "We don't have a maintenance reserve with Vale." "I know. Send everything to Mason." "Already did." I stood. The diner suddenly felt too small. "Anything else?" "One of the invoices lists equipment serials." "Refrigeration units?" "Yes." "Trailer numbers?" "Yes." My chest tightened. "Read them." She did. The first meant nothing. The second meant nothing. The third did. I had seen it less than a month earlier. A silver refrigerated trailer parked behind Adrian's main depot. He had told me it was a lease-produced unit waiting for compressor work. I had even opened the rear access panel. The refrigeration system was newer than the trailer. Too new. Custom-mounted. I had asked Adrian who installed it. He had shrugged. Some crew across the border. At the time, I had thought he was embarrassed about using someone cheaper than me. Now I remembered something else. The unit had an auxiliary condenser loop. Unusual for produce. Not illegal. Not even suspicious by itself. But specialized. I sat back down. "Nina, block copies of those records." "Done." "Do not call Adrian." "I wasn't planning to." "Do not tell anyone at Vale we're reviewing." "Got it." I ended the call. Then I stared at Elena's number. For a full minute, I did nothing. I did not trust her. She had already told me she could not tell me about the case. I did not know whether my cousin was a suspect, a witness, or nothing at all. But I knew one thing. If someone had copied my field signature, created a false email domain, attached my name to a warehouse, and used my service agreement to authorize work on a trailer I had personally seen at Vale Transit, then this was no longer a paperwork error. I typed, "I have records you may need." Her reply came fast. "Do not send them to me." I frowned. "Why?" "Conflict issue." "Because we're married?" "Because your name is in the records and I am the case commander. I can arrange independent intake." That answer did more to calm me than anything she had said all day. She was not trying to pull me into a quiet conversation. She was pushing me away from herself. Procedure over convenience. I wrote, "Where?" She sent an address for the Greyhaven Regional Investigations Office and a name, Detective Owen Price. Then another message. "Bring your attorney if possible." I looked at the divorce folder on the table. I had come to Greyhaven to sever the only legal connection between Elena Cross and me. Instead, before sunset, I was preparing to walk into a regional investigations office because somebody had built an entire false business connection around that marriage. And the first person who insisted I protect myself from her own authority was the wife I had never wanted to know. Detective Owen Price did not look impressed by my marriage. That was the first thing I liked about him. He was broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, and dressed like a man who had stopped caring whether his tie matched anything. Mason joined by video because he could not cross the border on short notice. Price put the tablet at the end of the conference table so Mason could see both of us. Then he placed a recorder between us. "This is voluntary," he said. "I understand. You are not under arrest." "I understand that too. You may leave." Mason's voice came through the tablet. And Mr. Grant will stop the interview if I advise him to. Price nodded. That's why you're here. He looked at me. Captain Cross will not participate. Because we're married. Because you are a potential witness tied to a location in an operation she commands. Potential witness sounds better than potential suspect. I didn't say you weren't a potential suspect. Mason leaned toward his camera. My client is here voluntarily to provide records he discovered after learning his identity may have been misused. Price did not react. I heard him. I almost smiled. Mason and Price were going to get along terribly. For the next hour, I answered questions. When had I formed Grant Thermal Systems? Who had access to my signature? Who had access to vendor packets? Who knew my cross-border schedule? Who knew I was married to Elena? That last question made me pause. My family? Which family? My father knew. He's dead. My mother knows. My cousin Adrian knows. Some extended relatives probably know. Nina knows. Mason knows. Employees? Possibly. It's not a secret. Customers? Not something I discuss. Your wife's occupation? I knew she worked for the Greyhaven Public Safety Service. I didn't know she led narcotics. Why not? Because we didn't talk. Price waited. I understood what he wanted. The strange marriage. The part nobody could hear without suspecting a hidden story. So I gave it to him. I explained the family property arrangement, the depot land, the succession plan, the legal advice that had made a marriage look practical to two young adults who barely knew enough to object. Mason occasionally corrected dates. Price took notes. When I finished, he leaned back. You never lived together? No. Never vacationed together? No. Never had an intimate relationship? No. Never met? Until this morning. Price looked at me for a long second. I've heard worse marriages. Mason cleared his throat through the speaker. I laughed despite myself. Price slid a printed image across the table. A refrigerated trailer. Silver body. White refrigeration unit. No visible company markings. Recognize it? Yes. From where? Vale Transit's North Depot. When? About 3 weeks ago. Why were you there? Routine compressor inspection on 2 of their line haul trailers. Did you work on this one? No. Did you inspect it? Not formally. What does that mean? I looked at the refrigeration unit because it caught my attention. Why? New unit on an older trailer. Retrofit looked expensive. What kind? Dual circuit cooling system with an auxiliary condenser loop. Price's eyes changed. Not much. Enough. Is that normal? It can be. For what? High-value pharmaceuticals. Certain lab materials. Some specialty food loads that require narrow temperature tolerances. Anything else? Yes. What? Anything somebody wants held cold in more than one isolated compartment. Price folded his hands. Could the trailer be modified internally without changing the outside refrigeration profile? Yes. How? Mason interrupted. Noah, answer only in general technical terms. I know. I looked at Price. You can split airflow. False bulkhead. Secondary evaporator. Independent sensor routing. Could that create a hidden compartment? Yes. Would a technician know? If he opened the right panels. Did you? No. Why not? It wasn't my unit. Did anyone stop you from looking? No. That answer sounded wrong even to me. I thought back. Adrian had walked out while I was standing near the trailer. He had joked about me criticizing other people's work. Then he had asked me to come inside for coffee. At the time it had felt normal. Now it felt like redirection. Price noticed the pause. What are you remembering? My cousin came outside. What did he say? I told him. Did he seem nervous? No. Defensive? Not obviously. Did he know you were looking at the trailer? Yes. Did he know your wife's job? He knew she was in public safety. Specifically narcotics? I don't know. Price made another note. Then he asked, who at Vale Transit can issue maintenance requests? Adrian. Their fleet manager. Paul Danner. Dispatch supervisors for emergencies. Accounts can release payment after authorization. Could somebody there create a fake service request using your name? Easily if they had one of my vendor packets. Could they know what your emails look like? Yes. Could they know the signature style you use in field work? Yes. Could they access your tax identification and insurance certificates? Those are in vendor compliance files. Mason spoke. That does not establish Mr. Grant's knowledge or consent. Price looked toward the tablet. I didn't say it did. He turned back to me. Why would someone use your company instead of a random one? Because the paperwork would survive a casual check. How? We already service Vale equipment. My company crosses the border legally all the time. We carry refrigeration tools. We have customs history. If someone sees Grand Thermal on a maintenance authorization, nothing looks strange. And your marriage? I looked at him. That part one don't know. Price did. I could tell. You have a theory. I have questions. Same thing with better paperwork. Mason sighed. Noah. Price almost smiled. Then he said, the entity holding the warehouse lease lists Captain Cross as a member. So, if someone wanted to create confusion about why a property linked to narcotics activity existed, attaching the investigating commander's name would be useful. I felt the idea settle. Either she looks corrupt, possibly, or I look like I'm using my wife's position as protection, possibly, or both. Yes, I leaned back. For the first time since arriving in Greyhaven, anger came cleanly. Not confusion, not irritation, anger. Someone had not just stolen my signature. They had built a story, a marriage nobody understood, a contractor who crossed borders, a narcotics captain wife, a warehouse, refrigerated trailers. Enough pieces to make any investigator stop and wonder whether the pieces belong together. How long has this case been open? I can't tell you. Is Vale Transit under investigation? I can't tell you. Is Adrian? I can't tell you. I looked at the recorder. Can you tell me anything useful? I can tell you not to contact anyone you think may be connected. That includes my cousin. I did not say that. You didn't have to. Price's face stayed neutral. Mason spoke more gently. Noah, listen to him. I looked at the tablet. I have contracts with Vale. Then continue ordinary business only after we discuss it. I have service calls scheduled. We can redirect them. That creates questions. Better questions than obstruction. Price nodded once. I hated when the lawyer and detective agreed. The interview ended with receipts. Not dramatic ones. A property reference. A list of records I had voluntarily provided. A contact number. A written instruction not to destroy or alter related business files. Procedure. Paper. The kind of boring things real problems are built from. When I stepped into the hallway, Elena was sitting on a bench across from the elevators. No uniform now. Dark slacks. Gray shirt. A jacket folded beside her. She stood when she saw me. You waited? I had paperwork upstairs. Convenient. Was it? I looked at her. She looked tired for the first time. Not weak. Just tired. There was a faint red mark at the side of her neck where the tactical collar had rubbed. I remembered that we were still married. The thought felt more absurd now than it had that morning. Price told me you're recused from anything involving me. Yes. You agreed quickly. I didn't agree. I was removed. Does that bother you? It would bother me more if I stayed. That answer landed. We stood there in the hallway. Two strangers tied together by signatures other people had found useful. I said, someone may have used the marriage to poison your case. I know. And you still can't tell me anything. No. Does that bother you? Yes. At least she was honest. The elevator arrived. Neither of us moved. She asked, where are you staying? I was planning to drive home. Don't. Is that an order? No. Then why? You've been awake since before dawn. You've spent hours in interviews. You're angry. I drive for work. I know. You keep saying that. You think I don't know anything about you. You don't. She looked at me. I know your company had a safety award last year. I blinked. I know you left Vale Logistics after your father died. My jaw tightened. I know you had a customs dispute 3 years ago and won it without litigation. That's public. I know you sponsor 2 apprentices through the Northline Technical Program. That is not. It was in a trade association newsletter. I stared at her. She looked away first. I read sometimes. About me? About the legal stranger I was married to. You could have called. Yes. So could I. Yes. That was the problem with fair people. They made anger difficult to maintain. I picked up her folded jacket from the bench and handed it to her. She took it. Our fingers did not touch. I'm staying one night, I said. Good. There's a hotel near the border highway. Don't use that one. I gave her a look. She exhaled. Not because of the case. It's terrible. You leave reviews? I arrested the night manager once. I stared at her. She added, different case. Your city is exhausting. It grows on you. I'm filing for divorce from it too. That smile appeared again. Small. Unexpected. Then her phone vibrated. She looked at the screen. Her face changed immediately. Work. I could see the switch happen. I have to go. Of course. She hesitated. Noah. What? If Price asks you something that feels insulting, answer it anyway. I already did. He'll ask worse. Good to know. He is trying to separate facts from the story someone built around us. Us. The words sat between us. She noticed. So am I, she said. Then she left. I found a hotel on the east side of Greyhaven. Not the one with the arrested night manager. I called Nina, then Mason, then my technicians. I told them a vendor identity issue required tighter authorization on every Vail transit request. No details. No accusations. I cancelled the next day's Vail service appointment, and told them scheduling conflicts were the reason. Adrian called within 15 minutes. I watched his name flash on my screen. Cousin. Business partner. Possible nothing. Possible something. Price had told me not to start conversations. He had not told me to ignore ordinary business. I answered. Noah, Adrian said. You're really canceling tomorrow? Had to. What happened? Greyhaven job ran long. There was a pause. You're in Greyhaven? My skin went cold. He knew I crossed the border sometimes. He did not know why I had gone that day. At least I had not told him. Yeah. What are you doing there? Paperwork. What kind? Personal. Another pause. Then he laughed. Finally divorcing the ghost wife? I said nothing for half a second too long. Adrian noticed. He had always been good at noticing. Did you meet her? Yes. And? She's real. He laughed again. Disappointing. Why? I always liked the theory that Uncle Robert invented her for taxes. My father invented enough things. Not her. What does she do again? There it was. A simple question. A question he had asked before. I had always answered vaguely because I had not known. Now I knew. Public service. What kind? I looked at the wall. Administrative. The light tasted strange. Not because I owed Adrian the truth. Because I suddenly wanted to know why he was asking. He moved on quickly. Anyway, Paul says we've got 2 reefers down. Send the work orders. I thought Nina had them. Send them again. Sure. His tone stayed easy. Then, you heading home tonight? Probably. Another lie. Drive safe. We ended the call. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed. My phone felt heavy in my hand. For years, Adrian had been one of the few relatives I still trusted. He had inherited the company I thought should have been mine. I had hated him for a while. Then adulthood had done what time often does. It turned a wound into a scar. We worked together. Had beers. Helped each other when equipment failed. He had loaned me a trailer when one of my biggest customers had a breakdown during harvest season. I had rebuilt 2 compressors for him at cost when his company was struggling. Trust is rarely one large decision. It is hundreds of small ones you stop noticing. Which is why doubt feels like theft. I opened the service records Nina had sent. The fake email authorizations. The Northway invoices. The trailer serials. Then I looked at Adrian's incoming work orders. 2 reefers down. Routine. Maybe. I forwarded them to Nina with one instruction. Verify equipment serials before dispatch. She responded with a thumbs up emoji. I almost told her not to use symbols because my day had become superstitious. Instead I set the phone down. A knock came at the hotel door. I froze. No one knew where I was. Then I remembered the front desk had sent up extra towels. Still, I approached quietly. Looked through the peephole. Elena. I opened the door halfway. You followed me. No. You found me. Yes. That is not better. She held up my divorce folder. You left this at the investigations office. I looked at it. Then at her. I thought evidence technicians were supposed to preserve abandoned property. It's divorce paperwork. Not evidence. Depends how emotional you are. She almost smiled. Then I noticed the paper cup in her other hand. Is that coffee? Yes. For me? No. Good. That would have been dangerously thoughtful. She looked down at the cup. I bought 2. Of course you did. She reached out. I took the folder. Then the second coffee. Neither of us said anything. Finally I stepped back. You can come in for 5 minutes. That sounds like a terrible idea. We've been married almost 6 years. That is exactly why it sounds like a terrible idea. I laughed. She did too. Quietly. Then she entered. She stood near the small table while I closed the door. There was nothing romantic about the room. Beige carpet. A buzzing air conditioner. A lamp with a crooked shade. My wife looked at the divorce papers on the table and said, "You still want this?" It was not a question. Yes. She nodded. So do I. That should have made things simpler. Instead I felt something I could not name. Maybe relief. Maybe disappointment at feeling relieved. I opened the coffee. Then we fix the false property record and finish it. Yes. She looked at me. But until we know why our names were used, the divorce may become part of the case. That sounds like a sentence designed to ruin my evening. It probably is. What happens if someone claims the warehouse was actually ours? We prove it wasn't. We? She corrected herself immediately. You and your attorney. And you? I prove whatever I can prove through the independent review. You're willing to have your own finances examined? They already are. Your phone? If required. Your family? If required. You don't seem happy about that. I'm not. Because you have something to hide? Her eyes hardened. I regretted it instantly. Not because the question was unfair. Because I had asked it cheaply. She set her cup down. My younger brother has been in recovery for 4 years. I said nothing. He had a drug problem in his 20s. It nearly killed him. My family spent years hiding it because they thought shame was protection. I understood. A narcotics captain with a brother who had struggled with drugs. Someone could make a story out of that too. I'm sorry. Don't be. He's doing well. I meant for asking like that. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Fair questions are still fair when they hurt. That sounds like something Price says. He taught me. Of course he did. She picked up her coffee again. I said, Did your family arrange the marriage partly because of your brother? Her expression shifted. No. Then why agree? She leaned against the table. Because I was 29 and tired of fighting my grandmother about property I didn't want. That is almost exactly why I agreed. I know. You read the letters. Yes. All of them? Yes. I barely read yours. I noticed. How? You never answered the questions. What questions? She stared at me, then laughed once. A real laugh this time. You really didn't read them. I was busy. So was I. What did you ask? She looked at the divorce folder. Nothing important anymore. I should have let it go. Instead I said, Tell me. She hesitated. Then, I asked whether you wanted the Birchline house if the depot deal failed. I remember that. You answered through your attorney that you waived personal occupancy. That sounds like me. I asked whether you wanted the antique furniture. I definitely ignored that. You did. What else? She looked at me. I asked whether you hated me. The room went quiet. I did not know what to say, so I told the truth. I didn't know you well enough to hate you. That's what I assumed. Did you hate me? No. Good. I resented what you represented. Also fair. My grandmother choosing my life. My father choosing mine. Yes. I sat on the edge of the chair. She remained standing. For the first time, the marriage stopped feeling like paperwork. Not because it became romantic. Because another person had been trapped in the same stupid arrangement. I should have read the letters. I said. You should have. You could have called. You could have too. There you go being fair again. It's a flaw. Her phone buzzed. She checked it. Price. You need to go? Yes. She headed for the door, then stopped. Noah. What? Your cousin called you. Every muscle in my back tightened. How do you know? I don't. I stared at her. She tilted her head. You looked at your phone when I mentioned the case. Then turned it face down. People do that when they're deciding whether to tell you about a call. That is deeply irritating. I've been told. Yes. Adrian called. What did he want? Routine service. Did he know you were here? He asked. Did you tell him why? No. She nodded. Good. You said you weren't involved? I'm not. Then stop interviewing me. Her face closed. You're right. The immediate apology caught me off guard. She opened the door. I'm sorry, Elena. She looked back. If you were allowed to ask one question, what would it be? She thought, then said, Why did he ask what kind of public service I work in? My stomach tightened. She left. I closed the door behind her. Then I stood alone in the ugly hotel room and understood something I had been avoiding. I had not told Price that Adrian had asked exactly that, which meant the next conversation I needed to have was not with my cousin. It was with the detective who had warned me that insulting questions were coming. Price was not pleased that I had waited until morning. He did not yell. That would have been easier. He simply sat across from me in the same conference room and said, You decided a question from your cousin wasn't relevant. I decided I didn't know whether it was relevant. That is my decision. I understand that now. Mason was on the tablet again. He looked tired. Mr. Grant is correcting the omission voluntarily. Price glanced at him. Then back at me. Tell me exactly what Adrian asked? I did. Greyhaven. The divorce. Whether I had met Elena. What kind of public service she worked in. Whether I was driving home. Price wrote it down. Did you lie to him? Yes. About what? I said administrative work. Why? Because by then I was suspicious. Good. That surprised me. Then he asked about the refrigeration unit again. I explained the dual circuit, the auxiliary condenser, and the retrofit I had seen at Vale's North Depot. Could the system preserve one compartment at a different temperature from another? He asked. Yes. Could the driver see only the legal cargo temperature? Yes. How difficult would that be? For someone who understands refrigeration controls? Not very. For you? There was the insulting question Elena had predicted. Yes, I said. I could build it. Have you? No. Have you ever been asked? I started to say no, then stopped. About a year ago. Who asked? Paul Danner, Vale's fleet manager. Yes. What did he want? He asked whether we could isolate a small forward compartment without changing the main temperature logs. Price's expression did not move. What did he say it was for? Pharmaceutical returns. Did you quote it? No. He never followed up. Do you still have the messages? Probably. I searched our archive with Mason watching. The thread was there. Paul's question. My general technical response. No quote. No project authorization. I forwarded the original to Mason first, then to the evidence intake address Price gave me. As I did, another memory surfaced. The controller on that trailer had aftermarket telemetry. What does that give you? Temperature, alarms, sometimes door events and location. Can you identify the provider? If I have the serial. I searched an old message to Nina. Weeks earlier, I had photographed the mounting bracket because I liked the installation. The telemetry module label sat in one corner of the image. Price called an evidence technician. After that, the clue stopped belonging to me. That was another thing real investigations did differently from stories. Finding something did not make you the hero. It made you the person who signed a form, preserved the original, and got out of the way. I went back to the hotel and dealt with the damage to my actual life. Our bank had flagged one account for review after the identity fraud report. A customer payment was delayed. I missed a medical cooling job and refunded the rush fee. One technician wanted to know why Vale work had been paused. A major customer asked whether we were under investigation. Nothing dramatic happened. Money just started leaking out of ordinary places. By evening, I was several $1,000s poorer and still married. Adrian called again. I texted Price first. Adrian calling. Do I answer? His reply came fast. Yes. Normal conversation. Do not accuse. Do not introduce case facts. I answered. You're hard to reach. Adrian said. Busy. You still in Greyhaven? For now. What happened to going home? Paperwork got complicated. What kind? Marriage records. He laughed. The ghost wife fighting you? No. Then what? A property filing. A tiny pause. What property? Warehouse. Another pause. Since when do you own a warehouse in Greyhaven? I don't. He lowered his voice. Is your name on one? Looks that way. That sounds like fraud. It might be. You call the police? Yes. Greyhaven police? Why? Just asking. Then he said something that made every muscle in my back tighten. Don't let your wife get involved. Why? You said she works government administration. If both your names are on that company. Maybe this came from her side. A seed. Small. Reasonable. Placed carefully. What makes you think that? Nothing. I'm worried about you. That was exactly what Adrian would say. The worst manipulation is often built from something real. Maybe he was worried. Maybe he also needed me looking in the wrong direction. We ended the call without an accusation. I sent Price a summary. The next morning, he asked me back. This time Mason had crossed the border and sat beside me in person. Price placed the document on the table. The telemetry provider responded to a preservation request and court order. Mason read it first. Then he handed it to me. The account owner was Grant Cross Holdings. The billing contact was the fake email address. The secondary contact was a Vale Transit internal account. Paul Danner. I looked up. Paul. Price nodded. Do not jump ahead. The module had transmitted location and door event data for months. East Mercer Warehouse. Vale North Depot. A service yard near the border. It doesn't prove what cargo was carried. I said. Correct. It doesn't prove Paul created the company. Correct. It doesn't prove Adrian knew. Correct. Mason looked at me. You're learning. Price slid another document over. Northway Mobile Cooling's owner had been interviewed. He believed the work orders came from me. The fake email and copied signature matched what Nina had found. But Northway technicians had never been allowed inside the cargo compartment. They were told sealed pharmaceutical returns required a separate compliance team, Price said. I stared at him. That makes no sense if they were modifying airflow. Who told them? Paul Danner. The next useful piece came from Nina. She found a certificate of insurance request from about 19 months earlier. Routine paperwork. Attached was a vendor information sheet containing my full legal name, business registration information, field signature, and mailing address. Paul had requested it. Adrian had been copied. That proved access, not guilt. Then Mason found that the fake company's formation fee had been paid with a prepaid commercial card from a batch purchased by Vale's accounts office. Again, not enough by itself. But the pieces were beginning to touch. Price obtained the rest through warrants, interviews, and financial records. I did not. Paul had used his position to create off-book maintenance documentation for a group moving synthetic narcotics inside temperature-controlled freight. The hidden compartments were simple: false front walls, independent airflow, telemetry configured to show clean operating conditions. Drivers could claim they carried legitimate temperature-sensitive freight and had no reason to open sealed sections during routine service. My company name made the maintenance authorizations look normal. The fake Grand Cross entity gave the East Mercer lease another layer of confusion. Elena's name served a different purpose. If law enforcement discovered the property, somebody would have to ask whether the narcotics commander had an undisclosed interest in it. Even if the allegation collapsed, her unit would lose time. That was exactly what happened. Elena was removed from the operation while an independent team reviewed her finances, devices, communications, and family ties. She did not fight the review. She submitted everything requested. I saw her twice during that period. The first time was in Mason's office, where we signed sworn declarations denying any connection to Grand Cross Holdings. The second was in a coffee shop because she had found one of my old letters among the records she had been required to produce. She pushed the envelope across the table. You kept this? I asked. You wrote it. I wrote a lot of angry nonsense back then. You complained about lawyers for 2 paragraphs. That sounds like me. I unfolded it. My handwriting looked younger. At the bottom was a line I barely remembered writing. I hope whatever life you choose is at least yours. I read it twice. Why keep it? I asked. Elena looked out the window. Because nobody else said that to me then. The answer stayed with me. I folded the letter. Why narcotics? My brother. You said he's in recovery? He is. She wrapped both hands around her coffee. When he was using, my family kept solving the visible problems. Rent, debts, missed work, lawyers. We moved consequences away from him, and called it love. I waited. One night he disappeared. We found him in a motel 2 days later, barely alive. Her voice stayed steady. I joined because I wanted to understand the system around what had happened to him. I thought understanding it would make me feel less helpless. Did it? No. I smiled faintly. She did too. But I got useful. She said. That sentence explained more about her than any record I had read. I looked down at the plain steel ring on my hand. I had worn it mostly because customs officers asked fewer questions when my paperwork and appearance matched. I pulled it off. The skin beneath was pale. I came here to get rid of this. You still can. Do you still want the divorce? Yes. No hesitation. It should have hurt less than it did. Then she added, because I don't want the first real decision we make about each other to be keeping a marriage either of us chose. I looked at her. If we ever decide anything else, she said. I wanted to start after. Something in my chest shifted. That may be the first intelligent thing anyone has said about our marriage. Your lawyer has probably said it 6 times. Mason charges by the hour. It sounds different. She smiled. Then my phone rang. Adrian. I stared at the screen. Elena's smile disappeared. You should answer. You're not supposed to advise me. I'm not advising. I answered. Adrian sounded strained. Paul got picked up. I looked at Elena. Without a word, she stood and moved to another table. Distance. Procedure. Even now. I heard there was police activity. I said. Investigators were at the depot. They took computers. They're asking about trailers. I said nothing. Is this because of your warehouse? I don't know. Don't give me that. Then tell me what you know. He breathed into the phone. Your wife is narcotics. There it was. Not a question. A fact. You know what she does. Silence. Then, I looked her up. When? After you told me about the warehouse. That fast? I was worried. Why? Because cops were at my depot and her name is on that company. Every answer still had shape. Every answer was still plausible. I wanted him to give me one reason not to believe the worst. Instead, I made a mistake. Why did you copy my vendor packet to Paul? Silence. Too long. Then, what? 19 months ago. Insurance request. Paul handled compliance. I know. Are you accusing me? No. You sound like it. I realized what I had done. I had introduced evidence. Exactly what Price told me not to do. I'm tired, I said. Noah, I have to go. I ended the call. Elena returned. You shouldn't have asked that. I know. Tell Price. I know. She sat down. I expected anger. Instead, she asked, why did you do it? Because I wanted him to give me a reason. Did he? No. That was the ugliest answer of all. The investigation moved faster after that. But not because of my mistake. Despite it, Paul cooperated after investigators confronted him with telemetry, payment records, and the false business filings. He admitted using my vendor credentials. He had help inside Vail accounts. He also admitted Adrian learned that maintenance records were false months before the arrests. Adrian had not created the trafficking network. He had not designed compartments. He had not personally handled narcotics. His failure was smaller and more believable. He discovered Paul was running unauthorized freight and falsifying paperwork. Instead of reporting it, Adrian buried the problem because Vail Transit was heavily indebted and could not survive a shutdown. Paul told him the freight involved gray market pharmaceuticals. Adrian chose not to ask harder questions. Then he approved payments. Then he signed documents. Then he learned my name had been used. He stayed quiet. When he discovered Elena was the commander of the unit investigating the warehouse, he understood how dangerous the scheme had become. He still stayed quiet. Not because he hated me. Because saving himself kept becoming more important than protecting me. That hurt more than a simple enemy would have. I met Adrian in a lawyer's conference room after charges and regulatory proceedings began. His attorney sat beside him. Mason sat beside me. No police. No secret recording. Just a civil discussion about the damage to Grant Thermal and the end of our contracts with Vail. Adrian looked exhausted. You know I didn't start this. I know. I didn't know what Paul was moving. You knew the paperwork was false. Yes. You knew my name was being used. His eyes dropped. Eventually. How long? His lawyer touched his arm. He answered anyway. 3 months. 3 months. Enough time to call. Enough time to warn me. Enough time to stop. You knew Elena's name was on it. Yes. And you stayed quiet. I was trying to fix it internally. No. You were trying to make it disappear. His jaw tightened. If I reported Paul, the company could have collapsed. So, people work there. Noah. And that gave you the right to let my name absorb the risk? I didn't create it. You allowed it. I was scared. There it was. The first answer without decoration. I know, I said. He looked at me. I'm sorry. I believe you. Hope appeared on his face. I had to remove it. I'm still ending every contract between Grant Thermal and Vail. Noah. I can't certify equipment history I don't trust. We're replacing management. You're part of management. I may not be for long. That doesn't change my decision. Vail is almost a third of your revenue. I know. You could lose people. I know. You could lose the company. I know. He stared at me. Then why? Because I spent years building a business where my signature means something. I pushed the termination agreement toward him. You let people use it because admitting the truth would cost you money. My voice stayed calm. I'm willing to lose money to make it mean something again. He signed. The next months were ugly. Losing Vail hurt. The identity review delayed a financing line. 2 customers left because they wanted no connection to a narcotics investigation. Even though I had been cleared. 1 technician quit. I refunded jobs I could not cover. Nina worked more. So did I. There were nights I slept in the shop office and wondered whether principle was just a prettier word for expensive stubbornness. But we survived. Then we rebuilt. A pharmaceutical distributor hired us after reading the independent compliance report. A food cooperative followed. I changed our authorization system completely. Every service request required dual verification. Every subcontractor received unique credentials. Every field signature tied to a specific job token. Boring safeguards. Beautiful safeguards. Elena returned to command after the independent review cleared her. No ceremony. No public apology. An email. A meeting. And her workload back. Paul pleaded guilty to trafficking and fraud-related charges. Others faced separate proceedings. Adrian entered a cooperation agreement on financial and regulatory offenses. Vale Transit survived under restructuring and new management. He lost his executive role. He did not lose everything. Real consequences are rarely symmetrical. Neither are they supposed to be. The East Mercer lease was voided. Grant Cross Holdings was dissolved. Our names were formally recorded as victims of identity fraud. And almost 7 months after I crossed the border for a divorce, Elena and I walked back into the Greyhaven family division. No arrest in the parking lot. No warehouse hold. No investigation attached to our file. Just us. The clerk recognized us. Back again. Please don't discover any more property, I said. He smiled. No promises. The judge confirmed there were no remaining joint assets. Neither of us sought support. Then she asked the simplest question in the room. Is this marriage irretrievably ended? I looked at Elena. She looked at me. Yes, I said. Yes, she said. The judge signed. Almost 6 years of marriage ended with less drama than ordering a replacement compressor. Outside the courthouse. Rain tapped the pavement. I put the stamped order into the same folder I had carried on the first day. Elena stood beside me. How do you feel? She asked. Legally efficient. That bad? I don't know yet. She nodded. Then she looked toward the parking lot. Take care of yourself. Noah, you too. She walked down the steps. I watched her reach the sidewalk. Then I called her name. She turned. I went after her. I have a question. She waited. Are you free for dinner Friday? For once, Elena Cross had no immediate answer. You just divorced me, I noticed. And now you're asking me out. Yes. That is terrible timing. I think the previous timing was worse. She laughed. Then she studied me. No family agreement? No. No property arrangement? No. No lawyers? Absolutely no lawyers. No secret warehouse? If one appears, we leave. Her smile widened. Friday. We had dinner, then coffee 2 weeks later, then another dinner, then a long walk through Greyhaven's River District where she spent half the evening pointing out buildings connected to old investigations before realizing she was talking about work again. I learned she hated sweet coffee. She learned I repaired things when nervous. I learned she listened to old blues records on Sunday mornings. She learned I had an irrational dislike of decorative pillows. I learned she called her brother every Wednesday. She learned I inspected restaurant refrigeration vents without realizing I was doing it. None of those facts were dramatic. That was why they mattered. We argued too. About my habit of solving problems without telling anyone. About her habit of turning ordinary questions into interviews. About whether she had the right to look up a man I was considering hiring. She did not. She admitted it. I apologized when I changed travel plans without telling her after we had already made plans together. There were no grand speeches. No promise that surviving one investigation had made us wise. We were two adults discovering that choosing each other was harder than being assigned to each other. And better. A year after the divorce, I crossed the border again. No legal folder. No petition. Just an overnight bag and a refrigeration sensor because one of Elena's friends had a restaurant cooler making a noise she insisted was probably catastrophic. It was a loose fan guard. I fixed it in 10 minutes. Elena stood in the kitchen doorway. You realize she's going to call you forever now. I bill friends. You do not. I should. You won't. I looked at her. You're getting irritatingly good at knowing me. I had a head start. That identification photo? Trade newsletters. Terrifying. She came closer. Her fingers brushed the place where my old steel ring had once sat. The pale mark was almost gone. Do you ever regret it? She asked. The divorce? Yes. No. She searched my face. I regret that we had to be married before we learned how to meet. So do I. But I don't regret ending it. Neither do I. That mattered. We never tried to make the old marriage romantic. It had been a bad decision made by families, lawyers, property, fear, and 2 younger people who thought indifference was the same as consent. Ending it was right. What came after was ours. Months later, Elena accepted a regional training position developing cross-border evidence standards. Less operational command. More predictable hours. Not necessarily better for her career. When she told me, I asked, because of us? Her expression sharpened. No. Good answer. Because after everything, I realized I still love the work. But I don't need every difficult assignment to prove I belong. That sounds healthy. It feels terrifying. Also healthy. She took my hand. We kept walking. I thought about the first day I saw her. A suspect against the car. Her voice carrying across the civic parking lot. My divorce papers under my arm. I had crossed the border believing I was going to end the last unfinished obligation my father had left me. I thought Elena Cross was a signature, a legal inconvenience, a stranger standing between me and clean paperwork. She had probably thought something similar about me. Then somebody tried to use that emptiness. They built a false company inside the space where our marriage should have been. They counted on either of us knowing enough about the other to recognize what did not fit. For a while, they were right. That was the part one remembered most. Not that my wife had been a narcotics commander, not the hidden compartments, not the warehouse, not even Adrian's betrayal. The dangerous thing had been how easy it was to build a convincing lie between two people who had never bothered to ask each other simple questions. What do you do? What do you want? What are you afraid of? Who do you trust? Are you happy? Do you hate me? Years later, people who heard the short version always focused on the same detail. You crossed the border to divorce a woman you had never met. And she turned out to be a narcotics captain? Yes, that was true, but it was never the strangest part. The strangest part was that I succeeded. I crossed the border. I found my wife. I ended the marriage. And only after the judge made us strangers again did we finally become something neither family, contract, investigation, nor accident had chosen for us. We became two people who stayed because we wanted to. That was enough.